digital infrastructure? That is a question that we are tackling this afternoon right here on Inside Government, and we are talking to the CEO of Kenya Innovation Agency, Dr. Tony Omansa. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. First of all, take us through the research as well as innovation ecosystem and give us a status update on what's happening in that space.
Good, thanks very much, Brian, for having me here. This is a subject of significant interest to me and to a number of stakeholders. First and foremost, for the country, there is significant improvement in the way we are organized to drive innovation. The head of state issued a directive for a new state department to be established within the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary to be in charge of science, research and innovation, and within which the Innovation Agency is placed. Secondly, is that there has been a continuous growth of the institutions that champion innovation. For example, the Innovation Agency now, with a lot better instruments of governance and management, we're recruiting and scaling the capacity internally and also expanding our portfolio of programs. In the past, we've done a lot of work with the universities. Now we're moving into the TVETs, we're moving into public sector, we're moving to support enterprise support organizations. Our convening mechanisms are becoming stronger, and also socializing the narrative of innovation and guiding the systems of innovation are becoming clearer because more and more people are appreciating what exactly this is all about. Now, we haven't got it all right, but there are a number of ways we're doing well. For example, now Kenya leads in Africa in attracting foreign direct investment to support innovation and startups. The country keeps to continue to do better in terms of global startup ranking. As you just rightfully indicated, yes, the Global Innovation Index, we have done poorer than we did last year and actually the year before. And I will elaborate a little more what exactly that means and what we are doing about it.
So, you know, I was trying to go through that report, not actually trying, but I was going through that report.
Yeah.
And it says that our investment in R&D, which is a key driver of innovation, is not improving. It is still stuck at 0.8%. When you compare that with major leaders, you know, like Switzerland, you know, they are committing significant resources, almost 15% of their annual budget going into research and development. As an agency, how do we plan to deal with this?
Okay, so first and foremost, it's correct that we are not putting as much as we should. We've got an Act of Parliament that pronounces itself that we are working towards a 2%. As we project to the 2030 vision, the spirit and the determination of the institutions and individuals who put together the Act was that we will do 2% of our GDP. So one is the Act of Parliament pronounces. Secondly is that the head of state has consistently pronounced himself in the recent past, particularly having established the new State Department, that that's the trajectory of moving towards the 2%. Now, 2% is not a small amount of money. It takes a bit of time to get there. So it's more of a trajectory rather than a destination. And once you raise the profile of this and we educate the stakeholders that need to know, particularly the National Assembly and the National Treasury, and the clear communication is done, there has been commitment in the recent past that we are definitely going to move forward. And that has been reflected in the budgeting process and cycle. And also the programs that we run, because the funds have to be absorbed by something in particular. And so we've been refreshing our programs to be a little more ambitious, a little more determined in showing so what when these resources get allocated and how do we manage those resources, especially when you receive. Now, it is important to mention that it is not the Innovation Agency that will absorb these resources by itself. We've got research institutions, numerous of them. We've got TVETs, we've got universities, we've got innovation hubs who are the beneficiaries of these resources. And we're going through that process of lobbying and engaging and convincing bilaterally and multilaterally on how we move forward in this area. Now, there is also something else that we have to mention, is that innovation funding does not only come from government. World over, Government does the funding at early stages of technology development. This is R&D, as you actually called it. And in technical terms, we call that technology readiness levels 1, 2, 3, up to probably 4 and maybe 5. Beyond there's an expectation that private sector takes up. And so one of the things that we've been doing as an innovation agency is to strengthen access to financing. This is not necessarily funding, but access to financing. And this comes from private sector. There are investors, there are angel investors and VC, and we've been building our relationships and trying to channel the pipeline out of startups to them for investment and trying to track our performance. So gradually, as we see it in the course of time, we are on a trajectory of getting to the 1% and build from there into the 2%. Yeah.
I know last year the president made a declaration that Kenya be moved from the Ministry of Sports and Creative, Ministry of Youth, Sports and Creative Arts, to be domiciled at the presidency. Has this happened? And if yes, have you seen any impact of that movement?
Thanks very much for bringing that up. Yes, the President pronounced himself on the need to move the innovation agency to the office of the president, and there was an executive communication to that effect. And the main reason behind that is the strategic positioning of an innovation agency, because it's cross-cutting in nature. When you place it in one ministry, which used to be in the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports, there is a bias that it is meant for the youth. Innovation is for the young people. When you place it in the Ministry of Education, where it used to be before, then it appears that the innovation agenda is only for universities or education institutions. And so by placing in the Office of the President, Executive Office of the President, which some countries have done, and especially when in the formative stages of the structuring the national system of innovation, it means that you have an aerial view and you're able to coordinate, because our mandate is to develop and manage the national system of innovation. Now, we are not the innovators. Innovators are from everywhere, and you're trying to coordinate that. So the president, upon his directive, at the point of issuing the executive order that now organized government thereafter, wisdom was that we move the innovation agency to the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, which really, by and large, has a cross-ministerial responsibility, but is a little more operational as opposed to strategic governance of the country. So now we're placed at the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, which achieved the objective that we had in mind, and it has paid off in a number of ways. One is that we're able to interface with several state departments, within, of course, the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary and beyond. And we interact quite a lot more efficiently with different government ministries, as well as private sector. Now, the university ecosystem, for example, now is one of the stakeholders we interact with. It's not the only stakeholders that we interact with. And that has paid off. The second bullet that I think is a connection with the international community. Because we are closer to the State Department for Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, there has been a lot better interaction with the foreign ministries, with other governments, with giving us a bit of leverage in how we think about technology transfer, to and from Kenya. So to that extent, and thirdly, of course, is all the conversations around strengthening the budget allocation are definitely in place, and we're already seeing improvement. And we think the trajectory now that there is a State Department specifically for science, research and innovation, championed by Professor Shaukat Abdulrazak, gives us another level of engagement at a much higher level in government, in lobbying, in engaging, in convincing, in articulating the agenda of innovation, and we're seeing the fruits of that.
Last year in April, we saw the cabinet issuing a declaration that there is a need for data to be harmonized, interagency collaborations and coordinations, and proper data management among research as well as innovation agencies in Kenya, and they are numerous. Has this happened? And if yes, how has this changed the research and innovation ecosystem in Kenya?
Thanks very much. I mean, you're right that institutions that operate within the value chain of science, research and innovation need to collaborate. I mean, there's someone who is building skills, there's someone who is doing research and generating some specific outputs, there's someone who is incubating something, there's someone who's providing infrastructure. You know, for example, Kirdi that provides infrastructure for innovation. There's somebody else who supports with markets and Ministry of Trade, for example, you know, thinking through export promotion and so on and so forth. So all these institutions. Now, this is partly why moving to the Office of the Prime and Cabinet Secretary is very strategic, because we are now able to build the value chain. And how we're doing this is through innovation clusters. You know, if you're innovating in ICT, it's very different from when you're innovating in engineering. The levels and or health sciences, for that matter, the dynamics there are unique. So we've organized, first of all, ourselves into innovation clusters so that the interventions that we provide to institutions and individuals are a lot more targeted. And what we're building around this is, if I take an innovation cluster, one of those that we are already really running very well is the bioeconomy, bioscience. And we've built a framework around it. And in here, you get educators, you get startups, you get incubators and venture builders, and you get the funders all together. And we've got a governing framework around it that we're putting together so that all these people interact, we convene them and we support their efforts and we track the data around this particular cluster from the entire value chain of capacity development, of financing, of infrastructure, of policy, and so on and so forth. It's not going to be something that we'll achieve overnight because it's cluster-based and we have to build that. Internally at the Innovation Agency, we've now expanded the human capital that supports all this. We used to be a lot fewer. We've scaled the number of staff by probably about 12 or thereabout, senior officers who are going to be hand-holding these processes. We've developed a master plan. We had done a master plan for innovation, a 10-year innovation master plan that looked at capacity strengthening, infrastructure enhancement, access to financing, access to markets and policy. And now we've also unveiled a strategic plan for research, financing and capacity enhancement. Now we've got all these frameworks in place, and since we're building the human capacity that then coordinates, we're getting more and more efficient in mobilizing and tracking data. Internally, we've also identified the key indicators that we need to be tracking and the digital platforms that enable us, the characteristics of the digital platforms that we need for tracking. As we get along, we were able to generate our first innovation outlook last year that focused on the national system of innovation. And we are moving to refining it, leveraging AI and so on and so forth. So I see light at the end of the tunnel because the systems are getting better.
And you're talking about a master plan. And last month, we saw the National Research Fund launch its 5-year master plan that talks about research financing as well as capacity strengthening. You're also saying that you have your own master plan. How do these two marry into each other to ensure that you're not running competing interests?
Great. You know, the master plan that we just launched, and you know, sometimes it has to do with which institution started working on something when. So we started working on a 10-year innovation master plan about 2 years ago. And the focus really was, how do we get the jargon and the language about innovation clear enough so that then we work together as a country. When I go to a research center and I talk commercialization or I talk investment, we are on the same frame of mind about the terms, the practices, the priorities, the key inputs and expected outcomes of innovation. So innovation really is about creating new value and capturing it in a way that it impacts people and transforms their lives. So we had already worked on this master plan. Now, how do you finance it? Then you start asking yourself, okay, so what are the sources of financing this master plan? And you start asking yourself whether you are comprehensive, you've thought through enough about the various sources and how you're going to track the financing. And this is what led to also establishing the research financing master plan and the capacity strengthening. Now, capacity strengthening has a broader array of issues here. There is a researcher, there is the innovator, there is the funder, there is the policymaker, and so on and so forth. So the master plan around research financing and capacity strengthening feeds automatically, because it's a value chain. It feeds and strengthens the innovation master plan, as it were. And by the way, master plans are not legal documents. They are not acts of parliament. Mm-hmm. They are yardsticks that help us collectively think about issues in a common and with a common understanding as to where we want to take them. And so far, they are paying. We are seeing the results of these efforts. Mm-hmm.
When you look at the country's research and innovation ecosystem, with all the players and scattered everywhere, is there any way that we can have a coherent ecosystem that is lean, that is well guided, by putting together all these agencies in one basket where there is clear thought leadership, there is a clear and coherent strategy?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is one of those issues that we've been trying to lobby for, so that we get a more organized structure. We have made some major milestones already, and I will articulate this in a little while. The very fact that the head of state guided that we establish a State Department for Science, Research and Innovation and hive it off from the State Department of University Education and Research is a major step forward. Mm-hmm. And secondly, have a principal secretary to oversee this State Department and the key institutions already aligned to it. Thirdly is positioning the State Department within the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, so that there is that strategic view about research and innovation across the country. Now, we're going an extra step, and one of those steps is, how does the State Department for Science, Research and Innovation interface with research centers that are in different ministries? Yep. They are supporting those ministries by virtue of the expertise that they provide in terms of research and the output. But the question then is, what is the say of the State Department for Science, Research and Innovation to this, to guiding the national agenda of research, leveraging these entities that are spread across? It takes executive orders to reorganize government. Yep. And it takes negotiation to ensure that these entities will be supportive to this subject matter, ministries, as well as be coordinated effectively from a State Department that oversees that agenda. Now, some of these things don't get achieved quickly, it takes negotiation, capacity enhancement, appreciating why that is crucial, and having a strategy. Now, the State Department, through the leadership of the PS, has already developed a concept and a framework of how this would look like. And we're going through the motions of engaging the key stakeholders on how to effectively coordinate the national agenda. The PS has already met all the State Departments that have research agenda through the research entities, so he has convened them. The Head of Public Service has been involved in some of the convenings of the research centers together. The PS has also met the Vice Chancellors and the universities and articulated his aspirations. And so as we move forward, we see this convening. So we should be able to get an organized way as we move forward, because that's the intention. And I think the rest is more about the diplomacy that goes with it, the guidance that goes with it, and our leaders are very much aware of this and working on it.
And when we talk about research and innovation, and do you see the participation and the input of the private sector in these? Because you're right, the government is supposed to put up the proper infrastructure when it comes to research and development, and then the private sector is supposed to come on board so that now they can fly with it. Is this happening here in Kenya?
Yeah, very true. Now, when you say private sector coming on board, it comes in different forms. And the answer is that it is on board, and we're just strengthening the efficiencies of our interaction with private sector in the context of this. One, there are several private entities that have built infrastructure for innovation. If you go to Stanchart, if you go to Equity Bank, if you go to some of the insurance firms, ABSA as a private entity, Safaricom is very aggressive in it. You will either find a venture building platform, Britam, for example, insurance firm has an innovation facility, and it is supporting startups and ventures that are addressing areas of interest to that particular organization. So one classic way that we are encouraging and supporting private sector to be involved in the innovation agenda. The second approach is around being consumers of the solutions that come out of research and innovation. So some of the startups that we support end up either being acquired or working collaboratively with the private sector and leveraging the markets. So classic example is Britam has so many branches across so many countries, and you've got a startup that has worked on a certain innovative solutions targeting insurance companies. With a single authorization, the startup now has access to all the customers of this particular firm in so many countries. So these are some of the initiatives that we are encouraging and supporting and handholding so that they can scale. Of course, the third approach is the funding approach, where we've got a number of private sector that are into investment, and they've got funding instruments that are targeting startups and ventures. And some of them come fairly early, what we may call technology readiness level 3, and others are coming at a bit later. And we have built now a team internally at the Innovation Agency that is interfacing with these institutions, trying to make sure we support them as much as possible to access the ventures that we can identify and mediate those relationships. We've got a team that is looking into startups alone and saying, what are your needs, and which enterprise support organizations do you need to connect with to get the support you need. In fact, that's the other pillar I was going to mention, how private sector is coming in strongly, is through the enterprise support organizations. In fact, the most progressive enterprise support organizations, you may call them incubators or accelerators or venture builders, are actually private sector. They are not government entities. And I can list some of them who have produced a lot of startups over the last couple of years. Yeah.
When you look at the mobile money ecosystem called M-Pesa, it is highlighted as one of the most innovative concepts that Kenya has ever produced, which has gone on to revolutionize how money is, how transactions are done. When is our next M-Pesa moment? Wow, that's an interesting one. It's good to look at what was the characteristics and the genesis of M-Pesa and what did it teach us, and how do we possibly reproduce in other sectors. There was a need around how money moves, and people, especially in the informal or non-banked community, moving money around as cash required that either you're sending it by bus or you're giving somebody to deliver for you on the other side, and so on and so forth. If you may remember the send money home concept, it was very popular here because Safaricom was trying to working with other partners, trying to facilitate microfinance repayment, and then stumbled on this thing called send money home, and then the rest is history. Now, problems and challenges at scale are the ones that produce solutions at scale. And as we keep identifying the challenges we face. Now, if you look at challenges like access to energy, power, or access to healthcare, or mobility, or some of the modern challenges that we are facing around agriculture and productivity. If you say something like food security, those are big challenges, and they require solving them using multiple institutions and multiple capabilities. We have a number of ventures and startups that have emerged trying to address some of these gaps. They may have not, or not may, they certainly have not scaled to the size of, M-Pesa, but you can see them growing rapidly. And some of them have attracted significant amount of funding, and they are very successful. I mean, if you look at an example like M-Copper, which provides solar-based lighting systems and
house powering system. It's grown into a regional enterprise. It's actually considered one of the most successful energy-based startup, and it is gone into multiple countries. Whether it will become an equivalent of M-Pesa, time will tell. But I do know that it is one of the most successful in fundraising, and it's doing pretty well. And hopefully, we will have another M-Pesa somewhere along the way. We may not be in entire control of that landscape because of the various market forces and realities of business development. When you find M-Pesa, for example, was backed by a very big corporation, which has a lot of resources and leveraged the agency network to provide the services to users. Now, we don't have an equivalent in the other sectors as such. But let's see. I think people are working and we are supporting as much as we can. Hopefully, we'll have another M-Pesa moment in the course of time.
And when you look at the innovation ecosystem, I mean, you have many companies, engaging in research and innovation.
Yes.
And you've talked to us about some of them. They are in the insurance industry, they're in the financial sector. But we also have other agencies, like the Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI. You have the Kenya Bureau of Standards. You have KIPI. All these agencies, they're in that innovation ecosystem. Some in health, others are in transport, others are in agriculture.
Yeah.
So as Kenya, do you have the human capacity, the economic muscle to bring all these agencies together and to find out or harness their energies so that you don't end up with multiplicity of research in the same field or concept?
That's a yes and no, and it's a complex question. Building national systems of innovation, it's a complex issue and takes a bit of time. But I would tell you that one is we have successfully coordinated now the university ecosystem over the last 2-3 years. To the extent that we've developed maturity frameworks for universities, we've helped them to develop innovation master plans, to pay attention more to their innovation niches and strengths. We started off with 5 universities trying to build that system, moved into about 14, went into 25, and this year we'll be scaling that to 30. And we've built a lot of interventions so that then we sort out those issues of multiplicity, duplications, and niche issues and so forth. We do a lot of capacity building for heads of institutions, the vice chancellors. We do DVCs, we do entrepreneur teachers and so forth. And this year, we're now making inroads into the TVETs. And we are also making inroads into some of the public institutions. We've only made some slight inroads into KEMRI and Calro. So I must admit we haven't got there yet. So in a way that, because when you think through how you're going to support across, these institutions are unique in their own rights. So how you intervene for universities and how you intervene for TVETs is different. For example, in the universities, we call a program research to commercialization. Why? Because there's heavy research work done. When we go to TVETs, you call it workshop to market. It's the same principle, but they look at things from a workshop standpoint. Now, when you design interventions, you've got to be very sensitive and build your momentum, cement, and then move to another, and so on and so forth. Now, I think, given now that the last 1 or so years we've expanded the capacity of the Innovation Agency, we're now moving towards supporting all these sectors. We now have a focal person for public sector. We've got a focal person for universities. We've got a focal person for the TVETs. We're going to establish a focal person for research institutions. We even have a focal person for students. So I would say that we don't yet have the muscle, as you framed it, to serve all of them rapidly. But at the same time, we needed to build the internal competencies and the framework that enables us to intervene at different stages and with different stakeholders. And what I can see over the next 1-2 years is that then we have both the financial and the technical capabilities to convene and rally. On an annual basis, we do host what we call Commercialization and Entrepreneur Institution Leaders Summit. Over the last 3 years, we've been hosting vice chancellors, and this year it will happen between the 20th and 29th of August, and we normally host this in Mombasa, and many heads of institutions come, and many lead researchers come, and we try to harmonize as much as we can, and we've got a number of partners who also come on board. And I think as we go, this year we're expanding from the universities, we're moving into the TVETs as well. So we've got a track on strengthening commercialization and innovation in TVETs. And what I can see happening is we will continue to expand that, and as the year goes by, I think we'll be a lot more streamlined, leveraging the innovation agency.
When you look at the WIPO index for 2025, it talks about various outputs and inputs when it comes to research and innovation, and it gives the reason why Kenya is not faring very well, and one of these fields is on human capacity and research. It says that when you look at investment in education, we are committing about 4% into education, 4% of our GDP into education, and we are ranking so lowly, I think at about position 126. On the other area is on investment in research and development, and I told you they are saying that our investment is less than 1%, and it says that if Kenya would commit more financing into research and development, and then go ahead and invest more in human capacity improvement and enhancement, it has the capacity to leapfrog. What is stopping us from doing these? And as a CEO of Kenya Innovation Agency, how do you plan to preach this message to the unconverted?
Thanks very much. It means that there are some converted and some unconverted, and that's very true. First and foremost, you got it right that Kenya seems to do well on outputs despite the weaker inputs. So in other words, when you analyze the data about the 5 constructs of input in the Global Innovation Index, we score lower than when you look at the outputs. And that makes you wonder, how come? The answer to that is that because of the entrepreneurial spirit of Kenyans, people willing to work with limited resources, go an extra mile, leverage that which they have to produce some outputs. It shows you that the input, as much as they may not be commensurate with the outputs, people are still able to effectively produce. And that leads us to the point that if we strengthen the inputs, like you mentioned, for example, the education and R&D and so forth, then we would expect a lot more output, and globally we will do better. I agree, absolutely. And this is exactly why the reorganization has been happening around setting up a new State Department, ensuring better coordination, lobbying for more of the resources, and from trying to move from the 0.8% upwards. And we're seeing, fruits coming out of that. But I do think that there's something that is a lot more serious, and we are really trying to tackle it. It's the data coordination that is going to be used for global ranking. There are very many indicators, and I have spent time to study that report. There are very many indicators where the data is not submitted. And in some cases, we've got obsolete data. In other words, it was submitted a while back, and then it never got submitted again.
So it has not been updated.
It's not been updated. And once that's the case, they wouldn't use it, or they will use that data, which does not reflect the current state. And there is a lot of data of those 2 characteristics. Now, this is what we did. We wrote a cabinet memo to request the cabinet to authorize the Innovation Agency to provide the coordination capability and linkages with WIPO. Because before then, only Kenya Copyright Board and KIPI were authorized to be the link institutions with World Intellectual Property Organization that manages the GII, Global Innovation Index. Now, Kenya has been positioned as the institution coordinating the GII. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is we requested the head of public service to establish a principal secretary level steering committee and appointed the PS for Science, Research and Innovation as a chair. And there are several other state departments, because data comes from almost 13 different state departments. Now, that's a huge coordination issue. And being placed at the Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary is giving us leverage right now. Then the third part is we also established a technical committee, which is made up of CEOs of the institutions that provide data. So that then we can hold each other accountable. We can explain to each other why we need to submit this kind of data by when and what the quality we need. And the Innovation Agency is providing the Secretariat services across the board. Now, there's something tricky about Global Innovation Index. If you don't submit your data by around March of every year, you're done. The announcement of the Global Innovation Index performance is around September. If you miss to submit your data by March, nothing will change between then and September. And so we are now encouraging a lot of our partners and saying, our stakeholders internally, even though you're submitting your data and you've missed the deadline of March, continue submitting appropriately, because this will shape the next year's index performance. And last but not least, in as much as we're doing this effort, other countries are also doing the effort. So it doesn't mean that the fact you've done, you're going to do automatically better. No, others are also trying to do better, because the Global Innovation Index is gradually becoming the most credible tool for policymakers to shape how they leverage intellectual property for commercialization and national transformation.
I mean, Tony Omwansa, one thing is that you're very passionate about this topic.
True.
And unfortunately, time has never been on our side. But
Absolutely.
we'll continue engaging to see that we bring the topic of research and innovation into the limelight. And of course, we give it the due limelight that it deserves. Your time is highly appreciated.
Thanks very much. We are on our way to a developed country, and science, research and innovation will shape that trajectory.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
I mean, we've been discussing the research and innovation ecosystem here in Kenya and how to ensure that we move in one direction, and data harmonization, as well as the right information is given and, of course, collected at the right time. My name is O'Brien Kimani. You have been watching Inside Government. Thank you for your time. Bye for now.
The FIFA World Cup 2026, hosted by the Triumvirate of Canada, Mexico and the United States of America, promises to be blissful. Explore the most exciting edition of the tournament to date, as 48 teams from around the globe compete in 104 fixtures across 16 host cities. Dare to dream big as we celebrate culture, friendship, and more importantly, monetizing talent at this first ever Tri-National World Cup from 11th of June to 19th of July 2026. Just like the formidable 10 African nations represented, be at the center of the FIFA World Cup 2026. 34 free-to-air matches, live on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
I'm Peace Bill Hasero, 14 years of age.
In our story today, we will meet a girl whose name is Kay. She is really looking forward to go on holiday. But something happens along the way. Well, let's get directly into the book.
I feel participants empowered in the pretty park.
And today I'm gonna show you how to make chia seed pancakes.
mali. So nawaomba wazazi, tuko na jukumu, tufanye kazi yetu kama wazazi.
Driving the unrest. Experts say school unrest rarely begins with fire. The fire is often the final symptom of problems that have been building for weeks or even months. Education stakeholders point to several recurring factors. First is the breakdown of communication between learners and school administrators. Many students feel they are expected to follow rules without having meaningful avenues to express concerns or contribute to decisions affecting their daily lives. Secondly, there is academic pressure. Students today face demanding schedules, examinations, performance expectations from parents, and competition among peers. For some learners, the pressure becomes overwhelming. Third is the weakening of guidance and counseling systems. In many institutions, counseling departments are understaffed or under-resourced, leaving students without adequate emotional and psychological support when they face stress, anxiety, or personal challenges. Other concerns include poor living conditions, peer influence, substance abuse, social media influence, and leadership challenges within schools. When discipline alone is not the answer. For many years, discussions about school unrest have focused almost entirely on discipline. And while indiscipline remains a factor in some cases, experts argue that punishment alone cannot solve a problem whose roots are much deeper. Research and recent analyses suggest that unrest often emerges when students feel unheard, isolated, frustrated, or disconnected from school leadership. This does not excuse criminal acts. Destruction of property and actions that endanger lives can never be justified. However, understanding the causes is critical if solutions are to be effective. The goal should not only be to punish wrongdoing, but also to prevent future incidents.
Whatever grievances that our learners may have, there can never be justification for causing death and destroying property. All perpetrators who would have been found to be involved in such actions will be dealt with firmly and in accordance with the law.
The human cost. Every school fire leaves behind a trail of devastation. Parents lose peace of mind. Students lose learning time. Schools lose facilities built over decades. And in the worst cases, families lose loved ones. The recent tragedy at Utumishi Girls' School, where a dormitory fire claimed the lives of students and injured dozens more, serves as a painful reminder of the consequences when unrest escalates beyond control. Investigations have also highlighted concerns around safety preparedness and emergency response measures. Each incident reinforces the urgent need to address both the causes of unrest and school safety standards. What needs to be done? So, what can be done?
The unrest appears to be driven by a variety of factors, including leadership challenges in institutions, learner anxiety and examination-related stress, poor school conditions, especially in boarding sections, alcohol and drug abuse, strenuous school routines, peer influence and copycat behavior, with learners demanding to be released early from school for various reasons.
Education experts and government officials are increasingly converging on several key solutions. The first is strengthening guidance and counseling. Schools need qualified counselors, peer support systems, and regular mental wellness programs that help learners cope with academic and social pressures. Secondly, school leadership must embrace dialogue. Students need platforms where they can raise concerns, propose solutions, and feel genuinely heard. Listening does not weaken authority, it strengthens trust. Thirdly, schools must improve living conditions. Safe dormitories adequate facilities, proper nutrition, and a supportive environment contribute significantly to student well-being.
There has to be a more gender and a girl-sensitive ways of protecting them, where you balance between discipline and also safety and security for them.
Another critical area is mental health. Many young people are dealing with stress, anxiety, and emotional challenges that often go unnoticed. Mental health support must become a core part of education rather than an afterthought. Mental health support must become a core part of the education system rather than an afterthought. Parents also have a role to play. Regular engagement with schools and open communication with their children can help identify problems before they escalate.
Starting next academic year, the ministry shall rationalize the school calendar to ensure that the terms are balanced and that the second term is not as long as it's been.
Safety must come first. Even as efforts focus on preventing unrest, schools must strengthen safety measures. Fire drills, emergency exits, functioning firefighting equipment, and regular safety audits can mean the difference between life and death during emergencies. Investigations into recent tragedies have raised concerns about locked exits, overcrowding, and inadequate safety preparedness. Every learner deserves to study in an environment that is not only conducive to learning, but also safe. The fires that have swept through Kenyan schools are not just destroying buildings, they're exposing cracks within the education system that require urgent attention. The answer lies not in fear, punishment, or blame alone. It lies in
The FIFA World Cup 2026, hosted by the Triumvirate of Canada, Mexico, and the United States of America, promises to be blissful. Explore the most exciting edition of the tournament to date as 48 teams from around the globe compete in 104 fixtures across 16 host cities. Dare to dream big as we celebrate culture, friendship, and more importantly, monetizing talent. At this first ever Tri-National World Cup from 11th of June to 19th of July 2026. Just like the formidable 10 African nations represented, be at the center of the FIFA World Cup 2026. 34 free-to-air matches, live on KBC Channel 1, your true sports partner.
Qué calor, llega en la discoteca, qué calor, llega para la muñeca, por favor, llega en la discoteca, qué calor, llega para la muñeca.
Mujeres por el mundo tengo dos, tengo tres, los relojes, tengo el Richard, el AP, el Patel, la Rolls Royce, el Ferrari, también el Porsche, pero cuando voy pa'l París saco uno a la vez, uno a la vez, uno a la vez, cuando vamos pa'l París eso es uno a la vez, uno a la vez, uno a la vez, si están puestas pa'l sexo eso es una a la vez.
Está la mexicana, la boliviana, la boricua, la hondureña, la peruana, la ecuatoriana, con su chimba.
Tengo una colombiana, la argentina, brasileña, la chilena, venezolana, dominicana, todas son lindas, pero una a la vez, uno a la vez. Hoy estamos on fire, solo se vive una vez.
Que tengo la azúcar, la tengo prendida como Palenque en Pachuca. Vamos la tricolor a tumbarle la peluca. Siempre legendario y mi flow nunca caduca. Mi tenis Balenciaga me reciben en la entrada. Paparazzi, la Lady Gaga. Y no te me hagas que cover de vivo, tú has visto mi cara. No salgo de tu mente, donde quiera que vaya, he escuchado mi gente. Ya no soy hype, soy como el testa rosa. Soy el que se la vive y también el que la goza. Es la cosa, mami, es la cosa. El que mira sufre y el que gana goza. Salsa es ritmo.
You got to believe, 'cause you know what it takes to believe in the dream. At the top of your game, feel it, got everything you need it. Now bring it like you need it, just like you need it. Dale, no olvides lo que vale. Juega como tú sabes, and it's just contagious, you know, and it never fails. So
The 2026 FIFA World Cup are kicked off with the usual pomp and color in the co-host countries Canada, Mexico and USA, with the tricolor of Mexico off to a good start in their opening Group A match against the Bafana Bafanas of South Africa, whom they beat 2-0 at the Azteca Stadium in a match that saw 3 players shone the red, with South Africa bearing the brunt of it all in the dramatic opener.
2010, when South Africa were the proud hosts, taking the lead against twice quarter-finalists Mexico through Sipiwe Shabalala. Goal for South Africa. You know the rest. Rafa Marquez spoiling the perfect story. He is on the bench for Mexico tonight. The opening match of the World Cup. A familiar soundtrack. And the first anthem to be heard at this World Cup, South Africa.